I had a discussion with a program coordinator, and this program coordinator is not an ordinary program coordinator. She has 30 years of experience being a program coordinator. I present Caroline Laundrie. Caroline Laundrie is the program coordinator of St. Luke's Hospital in Missouri, and she's a fantastic person. So in this video, we have nothing that we didn't talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, we talked about every single thing from applicants without USCE, how they can shine on their interview day, to how you can use your connections to get you more interviews. We also talked about the importance of personal statements in recruiting applicants, interviewing them and ranking them. We also talked about the importance of visa sponsorship. We talked about signaling. We talked about the importance of USMLE Step 3. We talked about letters of interest. We talked about sending a follow-up email after your interviews and what's the importance. And of course, we talked about interview and interview sparkle factor. So as you already know, this video is rich. Without further ado, get a pen, get a paper, and let's get to it. Now, a lot of people have asked me this question, and that was the first question I asked. I said, Caroline, can you tell us what is the biggest red flag for choosing an applicant, interviewing an applicant, and ranking an applicant? What is the most important thing you guys look for? Okay, here we go.
My community-based hospital, gaps in time that are unexplained. That's sort of, I don't want to say a red flag, but it's sort of something that brings a program to the attention. So you don't ever want to leave any gaps. It doesn't matter necessarily how you fill that gap, but don't leave a gap. At least make us look at what you were doing. Long time since you graduated from medical school needs to be explained. A lot of people that apply to our program have massive amounts of experience in a different country, which is good, which is fine. We just need to have that listed.
Okay, gaps. That's one of the biggest things. And I guess my question and the question of everybody is, first of all, how do they need to address that? Is it do they need to address that in their personal statement? Do they just need to fill it out in their CVs, or do they need to do both?
I think both. Actually, okay. I think the way ERAS is set up, the CV is pretty cut and dry, right? You fill it in blank, blank, blank. But in the personal statement, you can expand on exactly what you were going through at the time, because that puts a personal side to it too.
Yep. Yes, I completely agree. Okay, that's good to know. And I guess the follow-up question to that will be, in people who have those gap years, what's the difference between someone who just finished medical school, a couple of years has gone by, but not too far away, and then someone who has more than 5 years from when they finished in terms of the gap year? How do you perceive these both applicants?
Okay, of course, it depends on what they were doing during that time. Obviously, someone who just graduated or graduated a couple years ago is very fresh and up to date. And I've always thought that's a great thing. And it's hard to get U.S. clinical experience. It gets harder and harder, especially since COVID. So we really have to look at those letters of recommendation. I know I'm probably going out of order here, but the letters of recommendation shed a lot of light too on exactly what was happening during that time.
Oh, fantastic. In terms of timing, in terms of chances, how would you say, what does submitting a RAS application early versus a couple of days late, maybe a week late, does that change the chances of a candidate?
Okay, so I again can only speak from myself and what I do here. A couple of days or a week is not a big deal, but you need to apply early because those interview spots fill up. I opened my ERAS a week after ERAS opened, just because I had been on vacation and then I got back and I had to do all my emails. I had so much stuff to do that a week went by before I logged in for the first time. I have over 4,000 applications at the first look.
Wow.
So yeah, so obviously we interview about 160 to 180 people. I could fill those right now. So you have to apply early. That's important. There are special circumstances, I guess, and that could make a difference, but to be in that initial group, I think is pretty important.
Yeah, that's good to know. And so how would you say when someone applies and submits the application, what are the things that you look for in the application that makes you say, oh, this person is pretty put together, he's very professional, versus this person is not so much? What gives you that visual distinction between someone who is kind of, has their application together? Yeah.
So, common things, grammar, spelling, wording, consistency in the way that your application is is put together, the way it's formatted, list, like I said, don't leave gaps, have everything on there. And those are really important because, in a personal statement, if you're reading a personal statement and it's disjointed or the grammar is incorrect, it gives you some insight into how that person's communication skills could be when they're taking care of patients. And with not having in-face, person-to-person interviews any longer, all of ours are virtual. You lose a little bit, you lose that meeting someone face-to-face and being able to have casual conversations. You can on virtual, but it's not the same. I really enjoy meeting people, so the person-to-person interviews were so wonderful, but I think it's just a thing of the past. And there are advantages and disadvantages both ways.
Okay, that is true. That is really true. Right now, as the season has almost begun, what are the things that are happening behind, backstage, the process that the application is going through that most of us do not really think about or know about?
Right. Okay, so the rest of the job keeps on marching. It keeps on going. Like I said, I was on vacation. I dared to take a week off. So when I came back, I had all of that backlog to do. And you still have to do that every single day. I still have 44 residents who are standing at my window, and I'm never going to bypass giving them personal attention. So I have to take care of my kids. So I do that. And then I have to also make this run through these applications. So for me, the emails that are sent by applicants, I try to respond to them. And just know that I do, I don't, like I said, I don't know how other programs handle it, but for me, I never forget that there are people on the other end of those emails who've worked so hard to get to this point. It's such a big deal to interview, even to make that step. I know how much work goes into that. So I try to never forget that human factor. It's a matter of juggling. So just know that sending multiple emails is unnecessary and can be a negative. It takes time. So, you might not get a response right away, but if someone emails you, thank you for your email, then, you might not get, maybe programs don't send out sort of I hate to use the word rejection emails or letters, but if you're chosen for an interview, you'll get notice, you'll know, right? So
Right.
maybe one initial letter of interest email and a follow-up is enough.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I mean, I guess the next question will be, what's the time? Everybody wonders, at what point do we start thinking about sending emails? I haven't heard from a program. So, and I want to go to that program, but what's the time range? When it's too early? When it's too late? Where is the sweet spot? That's the question that most people have.
I know that's so hard too, because it varies, I'm sure, from program to program. So you're sort of just shooting in the dark on what different programs want. I would say, well, now it's not too early for sure. We interview from November all the way November, December, and January, all through all of those months. Generally, by the beginning of November, all of our interview spots are filled. So I would say now is the time. If you're interested in a program, now is the time to make that known.
Okay, so you sent interview. The deadline for ERAS was 24th of September. And today is how many days now? So 24th.
Today's October 1st, yeah.
So that's about a week ago. So somewhere around a week plus is fine with you.
I think so. I think that is what you would call a sweet spot.
Okay. That is really, really good to know. That is fantastic. Okay, I think this is very great information. Now that we know what's the best timing, I guess other question is, how do programs, or how do you particularly look at the letter specifically? Do you think is it in terms of, does that favor the applicant? Is it neutral? Is it helpful? Or is it even a negative?
Okay. Are we talking about an inquiry?
So like a letter of interest and saying,
Okay.
Hey, I'm very interested in your program. I'm still waiting to hear interviews from you guys. Just letting you know that I'm here.
I think multiple emails can be a negative.
Okay.
I would say that it's a positive thing to express interest in a program, especially if you have a specific reason you're interested in that program. If you live in the area and you have ties to that community, that's something that we definitely look at. I would think other places do too. I can't speak for that. I would look at it as a positive as long as it doesn't become too overwhelming.
Okay.
Just always keep in mind that the coordinators, while it's this application season and then interview season, still have their other duties.
Yeah, that is true. I guess that's hard to understand, because you would have thought that maybe there's a protected time for the coordinators, but there is not. So
There might might be for other people, but here is it's not.
Okay. And so with regards to that, the letter of interest, and that's the emails that the candidates can start sending around after 1 week has gone by.
Right.
How would you advise an IMG to phrase that email? Because that email, like you said, can be annoying or can be a positive. So how would you advise them to say, to phrase the email?
I would just make a blanket statement too. It's not just IMGs, it's anyone. Make your emails concise and clear. State like I said, state your reasoning. If you have a specific reason that you want a region or a particular hospital or program, even make that very clear right off the bat. You don't have to beat around the bush. Just opening sentence, opening paragraph, put that in there. You don't need to go through all of your qualifications again. We already have your application. Make sure you put your name. And here's something that I see a lot. Put your name the way it is on your ERAS application. It's sometimes difficult when you go by multiple names to search. So that's why the AAMCID is important too, obviously. So put your name the way it is on your ERAS application, put your AAMCID number, make it clear, concise, to the point. And if you have a specific reason, do it. Put it in there.
Okay.
Something to endurance. If you have a contact that you know in a program, it's very, very beneficial to have that person reach out to the program because there are 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 applications. If you have an attending physician who you know in any capacity, have them reach out to the program director, have them reach out to the program. There's nothing wrong with that. It's so important to your career to get noticed, to get reviewed. You've worked so hard. It helps.
Well,
It
thank
helps
you for that.
just to bring attention, just so you get reviewed. No program is going to be able to review every application, 6,000 applications. There's just no way. So if you know someone, have them call. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay, that's good to know. I think this is very important information. This is very, very important for us to know that just having somebody advocate for you is probably a good idea.
Yes, I think that's a great way to put it.
Okay. And in terms of just the application itself, what are the commonest errors that you see in personal statements and CVs that we make all the time?
So it's funny because sometimes in a personal statement, you might be applying to different things and you don't change your personal statement based on what you're applying to. So sometimes I'll get a personal statement in an internal medicine program that spells out something other than internal medicine. So it sort of makes you wonder, how interested is this person in internal medicine, or is this just another thing? So make sure that you have all that correct. Clear and concise. Again, there are so many personal statements to read. That being said, I do have personal statements from 20 years ago that I still remember because they were just so heartfelt. For me, personal stories, the things that you guys have gone through to get to where you are, it just really can add dimension to an application. And applications can be so cut and dry and fill in the blank and this year to that year. The personal statement is where you can stand out and tell your story.
And just to like piggyback on that personal statement, the personal statement that you still remember from 20 years ago, can you tell us, Psych, why did that personal statement linger? Why do you still remember that personal statement?
Yes. Well, obviously it was well written, right? I mean, for it to stick with me, but he had some amazing things that he had been through in the personal part of his life, rescuing someone from drowning and becoming a father for the first time. And I guess I'm just a sucker for all of that, and it was so well written. I'm a fiction reader. I love to read. So it just really stuck with me how heartfelt it was. And then we interviewed this person and he matched with us. And sure enough, as a resident, that's exactly who he was. Exactly how that personal statement was written is who this man was, and just such a good person. And it came through in that personal statement. And I don't have the secret formula for how to make that happen. It just did. But yeah, and he's not the only one that I remember, but that one for sure is probably the longest ago that sticks with me. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to be sensitive. Don't be afraid to be yourself. Like I've said already, the things that our residents have gone through in their lives to get to us are incredible. And don't ever discount that.
Thank you very much. I recently had someone who was applying to residency, and their concern was they didn't want to put their experience back home. So this person is from back home, somewhere around India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. They were told not to put in their intern year on their CV just because that it's not an experience in the US. And so I'm like, that is not correct.
Right. I agree with that. The personal statement is your personal statement, your personal story. The application is the facts. The personal statement is the place for you to expand on the facts. Let yourself shine through, especially now that you can't come in person and shine through in person. You have to shine through on a screen. It's harder. So the personal statement really offers us insight into who you are.
Okay, well, that's good to know. That's great. And just talking about what you had mentioned earlier about US clinical skills, how valuable would you say is US clinical skills in terms of selecting an applicant and interviewing and ranking?
Right. It is. I mean, having experience in the US is valuable, but it is also, we're aware that it is difficult to get those spots, to get that experience. It's sort of a double-edged sword, I guess. It is definitely a plus, a positive, because it also then helps you get letters of recommendation from doctors who've actually worked with you here in the United States. But it is difficult. We realize that.
Okay. And for those people who are currently applying without a USCE, what will be the one advice you would give them through this process?
Really give us some details on other experience that you've had in other places, the clinical experience of how you've taken care of the patients where you are. And I think maybe Endurance, were you the one who told me the story about where you worked? There would be 100 people in line to see you at the beginning of the day. Yeah. So, I mean, that's incredible. And I'm sure that the letter writers made that known. I'm sure your application had that, but I remember that from a personal conversation with you.
Yeah, it was incredible. The level of queue, backlog, and patients we had to see. And that was one of the shocks I had in the US when I came. I was like, you only see 10 patients? I was like, okay, that's interesting.
Right. Yeah. 7 admissions. Okay.
And just from the logistics of being unable to get USCE, then ties into the same population who need a visa sponsorship, usually people who need visa sponsorship. Given the new changes in the visa regulations, I don't know what's the direction of visa sponsorship for IMGs and all those people who need visa sponsorship.
Yeah, we're sort of in a waiting thing right now. I mean, the hope obviously is that they realize physicians, healthcare need to be an exception to that whole $100,000 fee for a new application. We're hoping for that. And hopefully that happens quickly, because this is the time when we need to look at these applications and make these interview appointments. And we need to know, we have several H1s in our program right now, and that's fine because they're renewals, so they're good, but it makes a real difference on our interview schedule what this rule will be. Obviously, I don't really know of any hospital that's going to be able to pay $100,000 for a person. I can't imagine that. So we're just a community hospital. We're a community hospital. We're relying on, the big name places and organizations to really appeal to the politicians to make them aware of who exactly is going to be affected by that. It's not just the tech sector, it's healthcare. We need doctors. If we don't get people trained now, in 5 years, you're really not going to be able to get an appointment to see a doctor for 6 months, 8 months, because there's going to be a real shortage at that point. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that quickly gets some sort of exemption and we can just move forward as we always have.
Well, yeah, hopefully.
But we're waiting just like everyone else.
And so if an IMG who needs visa, is there any specific approach that they could take to kind of overcome this barrier that they have? How can an IMG who needs a visa stand out among his co-visa needing IMGs?
Well, having all the exams taken and the results on your USMLE transcript is pretty key. Like, okay, so let's pretend this is just a normal year where we're taking some H1s, we're taking some J1s, we're taking a mixture of everybody. If we're going to look at, say we have 2 applications maybe that are equal in all things, except one has step 3 finished and one hasn't taken step 3 or doesn't have their score back yet. Well, what are we going to do? We're going to look at the person who's complete, because there's no guessing with that person. It's done, it's set. So having everything done gives you a leg up.
So that's good to know. So just plowing through all your steps 1, 2, and 3. Fantastic.
Right.
And so just a question about, I know I'm all over the place, but let me just ask a question about how the LOR is viewed, how you view the letter of recommendation within the US versus outside the US, and how can we get letter writers to write us an LOR that is, mind blowing.
Right. Right. Well, you have very little control over what your letters say, but hopefully you're asking people to give you a letter of recommendation who are going to give you a great letter. I think it's important that they realize, which I'm sure that everyone tells the letter writers, I need it done quick. I need it done now. So timeliness is important. Personal knowledge that this person states in this letter, they work directly with you, that they have personal knowledge of your work ethic, your skills, your knowledge, all of that, your patient care skills. That's very important. What's funny is in looking through letters of recommendation, sometimes letters are submitted that aren't signed. And I know that they're uploaded, I'm assuming, by the letter writer's office or the letter writer themselves. It seems pretty basic. Just make sure they realize that being on letterhead and having it signed is sort of important.
Yeah, we rarely talk about that. That's really good to know.
I get that a lot. And also know that the people who are reviewing your application and reading these letters are also letter writers for other people. So they know exactly what they're looking for. I guess every letter writer has keywords that they look for. Obviously excellent is better than good. Talking about actual hands-on skill is maybe better than talking about punctuality. They know this because they do it. They write the letters themselves, so they know what to look for in other people's letters. And someday, all of you who are watching this, and Endurance, you too, you'll be letter writers.
Yeah.
You'll know that side of it at some point in your career. So that's going to be interesting for you.
Yeah, it's good to know. I think one of the issues that we as IMGs have is sometimes half of our letter writers are writing from back home, and I don't know exactly if our letter writers at home know what counts and what doesn't count on the letter. So that might be one of the problems. So just having them know that what they did is better than like punctuality is not.
Right. And I don't know how receptive they are to instruction. I guess you have to almost do that by an individual basis. You have to know the personality of who you're asking and how open they are to suggestions of what residency programs in the United States are looking for in a letter of recommendation, because you're exactly right. Some of them are pretty far off from what we actually need to see, but some of them are right on point. Right? They talk about this personal knowledge that they have of working directly with the applicant in any sort of obstacles that have been in their path, and exactly what they've done with each other and how patients receive the doctor, no matter where. That's important too, that you have good rapport with patients, and maybe your letter writer puts that in there. When patients love their doctors, there's nothing better.
That's good to know. Fantastic. Okay, it's good to know. And now that we're going through the interview process, everybody's kind of tense, a lot of people are anxious. Your inbox is probably getting filled with emails telling you, oh, I want to come to St. Luke's, which is by far the best program, by the way. What would you say is the biggest avoidable reasons that people get screened out or rejected?
Again, every program is different, I'm sure. Everyone knows there are filters and eras. How different programs use them, it's, I guess, an individual program thing. And some of the things, maybe it's past the point where you have any control over it, because one of our requirements is a first attempt on all exams. So by the time you apply, it's, a little late in the game for that to not be filtered out. There's no blanket every single time to anything. I think that we do a really good job at looking at applications as a whole. I can't really think of a reason that is a blanket reason for applications to be dismissed. If you have big gaps, like I said, if you have big gaps in time that you're not accounting for, that's not great. But trying to fill that in with false information is even worse. You know, you have to be honest in these applications. It will always come back to you if you're not. You definitely want to keep it on the straight and narrow. Your letters will back that up. Your personal statement will help with filling in any sort of gap. I mean, people have to sometimes take time in between each step just because it doesn't work out. Just explain that. That's, I think, very important.
Has there been any time when you found an application and you didn't know necessarily have any connection with this applicant, but you were so moved that you had to advocate for this applicant? Can you tell us a time when that happened?
Well, the one that I mentioned with the personal statement from 20 years ago that I still remember, his scores weren't super fantastical. Everybody knows scores are not everything, right? They're great, they're a measure, but they're not everything because treating patients, they're human. That's sort of important, right? You can't just have to be all scores, but a well-written application, it comes through. And there've been a lot of people that come through our program and they'll get in their third year and I'll say to them without going back to their file to look at their original application, did you know someone in our program? And they'll say no. And it's like, okay, there was something in that application then. It could be right place, right time. That happens too.
I guess I probably must have underestimated the power of personal statements.
I think it is. I think, you know, it's all a combination. Your scores, what you've done with your time. We have residents who are here now who did residencies in their home country, you know, and I've had residents in my 30 years doing this that came straight from medical school in another country, straight into residency, and have been some of our top 10% of residents. You never know. And it's so hard to give a blanket explanation to how the whole thing, there's no magic formula. You know, it's not like math. It's not precise like that. A plus B equals C equals an interview. It doesn't necessarily always work like that. It's hard for you guys and I feel for you so much. And I try to always remember that when I review applications.
In terms of just applications, how much does the signaling help?
Oh, it does.
Okay.
It definitely does. Now that's that been 2 or 3 years now that we've had signaling. I think they might have increased the number this year of that an applicant is allowed to or offered to give out. But yeah, we look at every single application that has signaled us because those are precious to you. You only have so many. And by making sure we look at those, we find people who have a specific, definite reason they want to be in Missouri, in St. Louis, in Chesterfield, at St. Luke's.
Okay.
Someone who gives you a gold signal, those are precious.
Okay. And in terms of the quality of signaling, does gold, silver, or bronze, does it change anything? Is signaling not signaling, or it's different kind of signaling?
We look at all of them.
Okay.
So I can't really say that. It's just that I think there are less gold. So if someone gives you their gold, I think they're very serious. Because I mean, think about it. Obviously, there's a big pool out there, 4,000 applicants, 160 interviews. We want to spend those 160 interviews interviewing people who actually intend to come here, that have a reason to want to come here. I'll be very, very honest. When I first started doing this job, I've been here 30 years. I've probably done this for 25 of those, gone through the applications. I would be like super impressed by, oh, this person went to medical school at this top 5 medical school in the United States. And I was so impressed with that. They had no connection to our area. They didn't probably really intend on, no one wants to be a practice interview, right? So we want to interview people who intend to come here. Every program does. The interview spots for us are as precious as your signals are to you. You know, we want people who are really interested and enthusiastic. Now, if we want to start talking about the actual interview, enthusiasm is very important. You might be a shy person, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with being shy. I was shy for the first 20 years of my life, and then I figured out I like to talk. You can be a shy person, but you still need to show So here in our program, many years ago, we had an attending who developed this thing he called the sparkle factor. So during an interview, he would always write down great sparkle factor. And all that meant is it's someone who showed enthusiasm and like you, endurance. I mean, that just comes through. You're outgoing. So we know that you're going to work well in the group. You have to be a teammate to all these other residents. 43 people who you don't know are now going to be your teammate for 3 years. And then you're going to be a leader, and you're going to have to work with these attendings, the nurses and the patients, and that sparkle, that personality. It's important to show that during your interview. I know sometimes it's uncomfortable, and I know that talking like this virtually is also sort of makes you feel a little bit silly to talk to a screen. It's I don't know, it's different, but I know you guys are probably way more used to it than I am.
Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest challenges, because I would say that coming from our background, we are not as outspoken. Not as outspoken. We are not as, how do I put it in a very, we
Maybe
don't,
more reserved.
yeah, we are relatively more reserved, especially just because, so we as IMGs, we think the process, we know that the process is, we have so much that is coming that we have to overcome to be able to get picked and get matched. So I think on the interview day, it's more of a big deal for us. It's way more of a big deal for us. And we are more like kind of intimidated, kind of reserved. We don't know what line is cheerful enough, what line is crossing the boundaries. We don't know, just because there's a lot of differences in culture. So most of our cultures, from my understanding, most of our cultures encourage young people to shut up when the elders are talking. So we just shut up. And I don't know, do you have a way kind of to let our audience know that this might not be the way to go? You might want to think about it in this in this way, so you can approach and have that sparkle factor on interview day.
Sure, right. I mean, you never want to overdo anything and become obnoxious. That's for sure. But yeah, and I know different cultures are different, and it's okay to be reserved. It's okay to be shy. And there is a line where you want to be professional. I mean, this is obviously an interview for a job, so you want to be professional, but a smile can go a long way. We always let everyone, we usually interview 6 people at a are on our thing, and then we put them in breakout rooms with an individual interview. So there is that time where everyone goes around and introduces themselves, and that's a good time to just I'm just talking about smiling. You don't have to be, doing stand-up comedy or anything. And also, while people are in their breakout rooms, there is also the opportunity for you guys to talk to each other. And I think that sometimes that's easier for some people than other people, because some people are really outgoing. And actually, it's always good in each interview day, if there is one outgoing person that can keep that conversation going while everyone's in their interview, it helps them pass the time. I think that helps too with nerves, because it is, I'm sure, I don't know. I am not a doctor, and I didn't have to interview for a residency position, but there's so much writing on it. It's a long road to get to that point for people. So you do want to be professional, but you also just take a deep breath, try to relax, be yourself, because when you match to a program, you're going to be there for 3 years of your life, very important 3 years of your life, very stressful 3 years, where you're going to learn so much and grow so much. So being yourself, so that we can see that you're a good match. And it goes both ways, right? It's not all just about us liking you. We have to sell ourselves to you guys. It's important that way also.
I don't think residents or applicants think about it that way, though. I know it is true, but it is hard for us to think about it that way. We always think about, wherever wants me, I will go. That's how we think about it.
Right. And that it seems like every year it gets harder, I'm sure. It's tough. But, my best advice is to be yourself. And if that requires you to just tap out of the camera, and when it's not your interview time, and just take a deep breath, maybe walk around a little bit, and then, listen for the coordinator voice to tell you it's your turn, then come back and just maybe have a clear head. That's my best advice. Always be yourself. You have to feel comfortable no matter what.
Or how about the interview setup, like the background, the mic, the camera? How does that play into how programs perceive and rank a candidate?
I don't know that a background is that important. Maybe it will make someone will maybe remember that guy had a Christmas tree fall over in his background. I mean, something like that happens, you're going to remember it. I don't know that that's important. Hopefully no one's basing their ranking based on the background of my office either. And I know, there are unavoidable sometimes communication errors with I would just try out ahead of time, make sure you have a we do ours through WebEx, and you get an email ahead of time. And I would just make sure that you have everything ready, log in plenty early enough. We offer to you log into Morning Report. It's optional, but I would advise it for yourselves to see what it's like. Not for us to take attendance. That's not what it's about. It's a tool for you guys to see what our morning reports are like, because they've always been considered by everyone who's come through our program as a strength.
I definitely consider it as a strength. It's definitely one of the biggest strengths that I think I miss right now.
Yeah. And then after morning report, you log out of that invitation, and then it's about a 15-minute break maybe. And then you log into your interview, and then it takes a few minutes for everyone to log in. And then we do an introduction, go over the basics of the program, the basics of our area where our program is located. And then we break out into breakout sessions. And then at the end, we have a chief resident log in and do a very, very casual question and answer that it's not monitored by anyone. It's just, obviously, we feel like our residents are our best advocates for our program. And they're also the best source of information for people who are interviewing as to what the program is like, what our area is like, what the strengths are, what the weaknesses are, things they would improve. So that's how our interview day goes. And then it's usually over at noon for us.
Okay, great. Now, I know that, I've exceeded the time, and I'm thankful that you had time to stay. Just wanted to add just a couple of 3 more questions, and then we are done. I'm sorry. I think one of the questions is, what are the small, tiny professionalism cues in your emails, in the scheduling, in everything that Applicants does that makes the biggest impact? In just small but mighty things that we don't necessarily, as applicants, may think about, but actually is viewed very heavily in terms of overall perception of the strength of the resident and the ranking of the resident.
Right. I think that there is nothing wrong with, after an interview, following up with a note that says, I interviewed on this date. I want to express my interest because ABC. Again, concise, clear, and that we make a note of all of that. I think that's important. I think that not inundating a program is also important. One is enough. It's plenty. There's no 000 need to FedEx a group of thank you letters to everyone that you interviewed. I always feel that is so much money to put out. You guys already spent so much money to just apply. There's no reason to send a group of letters by FedEx to a program. Really is not, I wouldn't do it.
That's a great answer. One of the questions was, if you could give every applicant one behind the scenes truths about the program coordinator's role, what would it be?
That they listen to us, that the people who interview applicants listen to the coordinator's feedback. At least here they do. And I'm sure I'm not special in that. I think that most programs are probably like that if the coordinator has been there for a few years. This was especially true in in-person interviews, but it's still important now. They do listen. We can bring applicants to their attention or reconsideration maybe. I feel like that here. I feel like that my input is valued. I don't know if applicants really realize that. You never, of course, want to be rude to any other human being for any reason. So that's not special for a coordinator, but just know that they work directly with program directors every day and have a relationship. So they talk. So just know that. But also know, like I said, we do still have our other duties. Be patient and kind. Don't give up.
Oh, thank you very much for that. And just before we close, the question that every single applicant has sent me in inbox is the last question. Okay. Everybody keep asking the question. And the question is, how do I know that when I'm asked on interview, when I'm asked a question, I'm giving the right answer? That's the question. Everybody, about 300 people have asked this question.
You have to give the honest answer for yourself. So don't ever be anything other than honest with your answers. You don't have to think of a story. You don't have to think of what you told this person compared to what you told this person if you're just always honest. You don't have to remember what you said because you were honest. It was just straight up. So that's the right answer. The right answer is the honest answer.
That's good to know. I guess most of the applicants, their concern is, if I give what part of my answer, because most of us have a spectrum. If you ask the question, I have a spectrum of answers I could give, which are all necessarily correct. It just depends on, do I give this version that happened in the morning or in the evening or in the afternoon? I don't know. But the point is, they don't know what version of the story makes the best impact. I think that's how to put it.
I really, you just have to be honest. I don't know that there's any other version of honesty. That's all anybody can ask of you.
That's good to know. That's really, really good to know. That's fantastic. You just giving me so much wisdom.
Well, there has to be something that comes out of 30 years of doing this, right?
Yeah, it's been really, really refreshing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for asking me to do this.
Yeah, thank you. Did you have any questions for me?
We miss you.
Oh, I think, Worcester is pretty small, pretty choked up population. The people here are not so nice. You know that, right? They're not like
Well-
Missouri. Everybody's nice. Everybody's, nah. These people here, they're just independent. Nobody talks to anybody. Just like, yeah.
Well, I think that's in an ideal world, everyone would be able to. I mean, some people like that. I'm sure this cut and dry sort of very type A sort of place. Some people like the Midwest where we are, which is very friendly. And our program in particular is very, like, you're my kid. Once you're here as a resident, you're part of my family, and you always are. You don't work your way out of that.
Yeah, I mean, I really, at this point in time, we kind of have an idea that we will probably go back to Missouri at this time. Probably.
Well, any place would be lucky to have you. Just get your training, and then you'll have your pick of where you want to go.
Okay, guys, you've heard it all from Carolyn. 30 years of experience dished out to you. So you now understand what I've been saying. You now understand what it takes to match. Scores are great, but truly not that great. What everybody cares about is your personality. What everybody cares about is your story. Who are you as a person? Scores, your CV, research, but who are you as a person? It all boils down to one thing: your story and your interview sparkle factor. Okay, for those of you who have questions about what interview factor is, or you want to improve your interview factor, or you want to write good letter of interest, letter of recommendation, there's a link in the comment section. You can click the link and download it. Be sure to watch the next video, because in the next video I talk about step by step how to write a fantastic letter of interest. Okay, so guys, what I want you to do is share this video with your colleagues, share this video with your friends. Make sure that those people you are interviewing with, people that you are on this journey with, also get to see and get to have the same kind of information that is you have. Okay, wishing you guys good luck in the match, and as usual, I'll see you in the next one.